She sat in front of the camera, eyes hollow, voice calm, too calm. Behind her, on the bed, lay the lifeless bodies of her daughters. "You win, Leo," she whispered. "I hope you're happy now." What followed was one of the most chilling crimes in Canadian history. A mother, broken by paranoia, revenge, and a bitter custody war, drowned her two young daughters in a bathtub, and left behind a video message that would haunt investigators forever. What could drive a mother to such darkness, and how did no one see it coming? What makes a mother take the lives of her own children? Is it madness, or method? In the quiet city of Barrie, Ontario, nestled just north of Toronto, two beautiful little girls were found dead. Their small bodies carefully dressed in matching pink pajamas, their hair still damp from the bath in which they drowned. They were placed side by side on a bed like dolls, their eyes closed forever. Next to them was a video camera, still warm, still recording. And inside, a haunting confession from the woman who took their lives, their mother, Elaine Campione. Tonight, we bring you a story that isn't just tragic, it's terrifying. Not because it happened in some dark alley by a faceless killer, but because it happened in a home, by the very hands that once held those girls to sleep. This is not an easy story to hear, but it's one that demands to be told. Elaine Campione grew up in a small, devoutly Catholic community in New Brunswick. She was soft-spoken, shy, and often kept to herself. To those who knew her, she was fragile, not just physically but emotionally. She had a long history of mental health issues, including depression and anxiety. Some say she was sweet. Others said she was always on the edge. In her mid-20s, she met Leo Campione, an outgoing, ambitious man with dreams of becoming a police officer. He was everything Elaine wasn't: confident, assertive, in control. They married quickly and soon after had two daughters. Serena, a curious and energetic toddler, and Sophia, barely more than a baby with big eyes and a contagious giggle. But the marriage quickly soured. Elaine accused Leo of being controlling and emotionally abusive. Leo, in turn, claimed Elaine was unstable, manipulative, and prone to violent outbursts. Friends and neighbors began noticing the tension. Police were called to their home multiple times. Elaine had several psychiatric hospitalizations. When they separated in 2005, a brutal custody battle began. One filled with restraining orders, court dates, accusations, and counter-accusations. Leo was seeking full custody of the girls. Elaine was determined not to let that happen. In her mind, Leo was dangerous. She believed, or chose to believe, that if he got custody the girls would suffer. She thought she was the only one who could protect them, said a family friend. But that wasn't love. That was fear turned into obsession. She became increasingly isolated, paranoid, obsessed with the idea that Leo would take the girls away, permanently. And when the courts began siding with Leo, Elaine unraveled. On October 2, 2006, she made a final decision. If she couldn't have her daughters, no one would. What came next would shock the entire country. The crime, the haunting video, the suicide attempt, and the cold, devastating question. Did Elaine Campione truly believe she was saving her children? Or was this calculated revenge, delivered in the most horrifying way imaginable? It was a quiet Monday evening in Barrie, Ontario, October 2, 2006. Elaine Campione had just returned to her small two-bedroom apartment in a modest government-subsidized complex. She had spent the day with her daughters, Serena, age 3, and Sophia, just 19 months old. There was nothing unusual about the evening. No signs of chaos. No cries for help. Just silence. But inside that apartment, a horrifying plan was already in motion. Elaine drew a warm bath. She dressed her daughters in clean pajamas, pink with little cartoon animals on them. She brushed their hair, wiped their faces. She spoke softly to them, as if everything was normal. Then, she placed Serena into the tub. According to later reports, she may have used her hand, or possibly a toy, to hold her daughter under the water. A child old enough to cry, old enough to struggle. And after Serena stopped breathing, she did the same to little Sophia. Two small bodies, two lives, extinguished in water. After the bath, Elaine dried them off. She gently laid their lifeless bodies on her bed, side by side, their heads turned slightly toward the camera she was about to turn on. She dressed herself, sat down, looked straight into the lens, and pressed record. What followed was one of the most haunting and chilling home videos ever entered into evidence in a Canadian courtroom. In the video, Elaine doesn't scream. She doesn't cry. Her voice is calm, robotic. She says, "You win, Leo. You're right. I'm sick. But you made me this way. And now, you get what you wanted. You have your freedom. Behind her, the tiny bodies of Serena and Sophia are visible, unmoving. You're free now, Leo, she continues. Free of us. The look in her eyes is vacant. Not defiant. Not grieving. Just empty. And then she turns off the camera. After recording the message, Elaine attempted to take her own life. She swallowed a large quantity of prescription sleeping pills and sedatives, which she had quietly stockpiled over the previous weeks. She unplugged her phone, locked the doors, closed the blinds. She expected not to wake up. But death didn't come quickly enough. 2 days passed. Family members, concerned after not hearing from Elaine, contacted police. Officers forced their way into the apartment on October 4, 2006. What they found would scar even the most seasoned investigators. Elaine was barely conscious, lying on the floor, incoherent and confused. Her speech was slurred. Her breathing shallow. Pill bottles were scattered across the room. But it was what they saw on the bed that stopped them cold. 2 little girls. Pale. Lifeless. Their limbs stiff. Their skin cold to the touch. They had been dead for at least 48 hours. The responding officer immediately called for backup. Detective John Line, one of the first to arrive at the scene, later described the experience in court. I've seen a lot in my time. But this was pure evil wrapped in sadness. Elaine was rushed to Royal Victoria Hospital, where she remained under 24-hour psychiatric watch. Meanwhile, forensic teams descended on the apartment. They found no signs of forced entry. No weapons. No blood. Just an eerie, clinical stillness. Everything was in order. Too much so. The bathroom was clean. The tub, wiped down. Towels folded. The only thing out of place was the camera. And when investigators reviewed the footage inside it, they realized they weren't dealing with an impulsive act. They were looking at a premeditated double murder, with a video confession as the killer's parting shot. Elaine was arrested while still in her hospital bed. Her charge? 2 counts of first-degree murder. She barely reacted. In the days that followed, the media erupted. Monster mom. Drowned by love. Custody war turns deadly. The headlines were brutal. And the public wanted answers. The autopsies confirmed both children died from drowning, but also revealed something even more disturbing. There were no signs of struggle. Serena, despite being old enough to resist, had no defensive wounds. No bruises. No scratches. Sophia had likely never known what was happening. This suggested one of 2 things. Either the girls had been sedated beforehand, or Elaine had built such a deep level of trust with them, that even as she held them under, they believed they were safe. That trust, between mother and child, had become a weapon. In the weeks following her arrest, psychologists were brought in to evaluate Elaine. They described her as detached, often in denial, sometimes paranoid, and occasionally delusional. One forensic psychiatrist testified, Elaine had convinced herself she was protecting the children. She saw their deaths as an act of mercy, not murder. But prosecutors saw it differently. They found journals where she vented about Leo, where she accused him of trying to take everything from her, where she wrote, "He'll never have them. Not even if I die." That sentence would haunt the courtroom later. Police also discovered that in the days leading up to the killings, Elaine had stopped attending counseling appointments, refused social worker visits, and withdrew from friends and family. She was isolating herself, building toward something. When the judge ruled Leo could begin overnight visits with the girls, Elaine spiraled. To her, it was the ultimate betrayal by the system. And in her mind, the final threat. What makes this case so disturbing is not just the crime itself, but the clarity with which it was carried out. Elaine Campione didn't snap in a fit of rage. She planned. She waited. She acted. And when the dust settled, she left behind a carefully crafted video. A message, not a breakdown. You win, she told Leo. But they're gone. It wasn't just about taking the children. It was about ensuring he lost them too. The investigation would eventually lead to one of the most emotionally wrenching trials in Canadian legal history, where jurors would have to decide, was this woman a victim of mental illness? Or a calculating killer who used her daughters as pawns in a custody war? That question would echo through the courtroom, and linger with anyone who watched that tape. The trial of Elaine Campione began in 2010, nearly 4 years after the murders. But time had done nothing to dull the pain, or the horror. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, victim advocates, family members from both sides. And at the heart of it all, a grieving father. Leo Campione sat just feet away from the woman who had taken everything from him. The woman who had once been his wife now stood accused of murdering their daughters. "They were my life," Leo said quietly. And she knew that. From the outset, the trial was emotionally charged. Elaine Campione's defense didn't deny that she killed her daughters. They didn't argue the evidence. They didn't question the timeline. What they did argue was intent. They claimed Elaine was not criminally responsible due to mental illness, that she suffered from severe psychosis, delusions, and post-traumatic stress from years of alleged abuse. Her lawyer painted a portrait of a woman unraveling, abandoned by the system, terrorized by the fear of losing her children, convinced that death was the only way to protect them from a dangerous world and a dangerous man. This was not an act of malice, the defense stated. It was a mother drowning in desperation. But the prosecution told a very different story. They presented Elaine not as a helpless victim, but as a calculating, manipulative killer who weaponized her mental health as a shield. They showed the jury the now infamous video confession. Not once, but multiple times. Elaine staring into the camera, her tone flat, her eyes dry, her voice calm as she tells Leo, "You win. We're gone. That's what you wanted." It wasn't the voice of a woman in psychosis, prosecutors argued. It was vengeance spoken plainly. Crown attorney Enno Myers delivered the most damning quote of the trial. She didn't kill them because she was insane. She killed them because she was angry. And she wanted him to suffer. They brought in mental health experts who disputed the insanity defense. Psychiatrists testified that Elaine was sad, disturbed, and emotionally volatile, but still knew right from wrong. And they pointed to the planning, the gathering of pills, the clean apartment, the deliberate recording of the tape, the chilling placement of the bodies on the bed. All of it, they argued, showed clear, rational thinking. Leo Campione took the stand. He described his daughters in heartbreaking detail. Serena was full of energy. She danced to anything, even commercials. Sophia had this laugh, this big, goofy laugh. It made you forget the world. And when asked about Elaine, "I never thought she could do something like this," he said, voice shaking. "But now, I don't even know who she is." The jury deliberated for just under 6 hours. On November 15, 2010, the verdict was read. Elaine Campione was found guilty on 2 counts of first-degree murder. She received a life sentence with no possibility of parole for 25 years. There were no cheers, no gasps, just quiet, and the sound of a mother weeping as the reality sank in. After the trial, Leo released a short statement. "This was never about revenge. I didn't want to hate her. I just wanted my girls to live." He later moved out of Barrie, trying to build a new life far from the memories. But for many Canadians, the wounds remained open. The case sparked a national conversation about mental health, domestic violence, and the failures of the family court system. How could a woman with such an extensive psychiatric history retain full custody of 2 young children? Why weren't the warning signs acted on? In the months leading up to the murders, several red flags had surfaced. Elaine missed multiple mental health appointments. She became increasingly paranoid, reporting fears that the government was watching her. A social worker had even expressed concerns that she was becoming emotionally unstable. Yet, no one intervened. Some critics blamed the courts, suggesting the custody battle had pushed Elaine to the brink. Others blamed Child Protection Services for failing to act on documented concerns. And still others pointed the finger squarely at Elaine herself, for using her daughters as pawns in a murder-suicide that didn't go as planned. Psychologists continue to study the Campione case as a rare and chilling example of altruistic filicide, a phenomenon where a parent kills their child under the delusion that they're sparing them from suffering. But not all experts agree. Dr. Julianne Shields, a forensic psychologist, stated, "Altruistic filicide is often accompanied by deep remorse, delusional thinking, and immediate suicide. But in Elaine's case, what we saw was something colder, something more theatrical." That video confession, she argued, wasn't a cry for help. It was a message, a calculated effort to hurt someone who had hurt her. Elaine Campione is currently serving her sentence at Grand Valley Institution for Women in Kitchener, Ontario. She is eligible for parole in 2031. She has reportedly expressed remorse in prison, but has never taken full responsibility. She still refers to the murders as a tragedy, not as a crime. Music slows to a somber close. Low piano, ambient echo. The story of Serena and Sophia Campione is one of the darkest chapters in Canadian criminal history. 2 innocent lives, stolen not by a stranger, but by the one person meant to protect them. A mother, a camera, a confession, and a nation asking, was it madness, or was it murder? In the end, we're left with more than just a crime. We're left with a chilling portrait of a mother who turned her pain into punishment, and used her children as the final message in a war she believed she had already lost. Serena and Sofia Campioni never stood a chance. Not against the quiet storm brewing in their mother's mind. Not against a system that saw the warning signs and looked away. And perhaps the most haunting part? She didn't run. She didn't hide. She sat down, looked into a camera, and told the father of her children, "You win." That wasn't madness. That was a message. The case of Elaine Campioni forces us to confront the darkest corners of parental obsession, psychological collapse, and revenge disguised as mercy. Was she mentally ill? Yes. But was she also in control? That's what the jury had to decide. Now, we want to hear from you. Drop of Blood, do you believe this was a psychotic break, or a calculated murder? Drop of Blood, should the courts have stepped in sooner? Drop of Blood, can remorse ever matter, when the victims are your own children? Let us know in the comments below. Your thoughts help shape the ongoing conversation around justice, mental health, and how society should respond when love turns lethal. And if you found this story as devastating and thought-provoking as we did, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to True Crime Cinema, and share this case with someone who needs to hear it. Because stories like this should never be forgotten.